my life has never been conventional. Not only my old architecture completely collapsed to the ground, my limiting beliefs, my identity, my body started changing very rapidly. I transformed at the DNA and cellular level. Throughout my entire life, I've been shifting timelines very rapidly. I almost feel motion sick from how many experiences I've had in this lifetime. It was just so intense that I didn't even know who to talk to. My old architecture completely collapsed to the ground. I thought it was, going to get easier from there. I had no idea what was in store for me. Welcome to the first episode of Homo Luminous. I am your host, Mizuya, and this is a space where we drop survival, reclaim our sovereignty, and step into the most extraordinary version of existence. I am so excited to be here today. This has been a long time coming. So many people have been literally asking me to start a podcast because there is so much that I have to share. And as a matter of fact, the people closest to me always say that I'm a walking podcast. So I'm very excited. And I guess the best place to start today is by sharing my story in depth. Right? I haven't really opened up about every detail of my journey. And this is a question that I get asked very often. My DMs are constantly flooding with people saying, I am intrigued by you. You have such a mysterious energy. There is so much depth to you. And I want to know more about your journey. How did you get here? And so that feels like the perfect place to kick off this space. So I guess we'll start by talking about my early childhood, my journey, how I got here. And I was born in Colombia. And at the age of 10, I moved to the Hamptons, New York. I was born into a very normal working class family. I wasn't born into any sort of privileges. Even though I was born in a very loving family, as a soul, I chose to incarnate in very dense systems, 3D dark systems. And so when I moved to the Hamptons, New York, now that I look back, I realize that is also a very dense place. Growing up, I was surrounded by drama, gossip, very low density systems and experiences. And I truly feel at this point of my journey as if I have lived 30 lifetimes in one single one. There is so many details, so many versions of me that the people that have been part of my world have already met. And if you are new to my world, welcome. There are still many more versions to come. Now, I grew up in the Hamptons, and once again, just very karmic patterning. The first half of my life was filled with a lot of karmic patterns. Anything you can think of in terms of density, darkness, I've been there. Abuse, injustice, gossip, everything you can think of, I have experienced it before. And it's very ironic because people meet me today and they assume that I've always been this version of myself, or that I carry this light and this high vibration and this bubbly personality because my life has always been easy. But that couldn't be farther away from the truth. And I'm sure many of you will relate to this. Everything I know about my light, my darkness taught me. For a very long time, I felt very disconnected from this dimension, from this realm. I always felt like a misfit. I was the black sheep everywhere I went. I felt alien to my own family, to my friends, to every system that I was a part of. And at the time, I didn't know why that was, but now I realize that I have always been a very sovereign being. There were many systems that my soul simply never resonated with, and I was very judged by the people around me, my family, my friends. People would always assume that I was lost, that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, that I was simply rebellious and I was going against the current. But at the core, it was just this intuitive feeling that I was here for something different. I wasn't here to fit into the world as we know it. And so when I graduated high school, my father said, anywhere you want to go to school, I will support you. This was something that was very important for him. I am his first daughter, and me going to school was somehow part of his goals, right? It was something important for him. And when I graduated, I simply didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And a deeper part of me felt that it was a scam. It just didn't resonate with me. It didn't make sense to me that I would go to school and have my dad be in debt to pay for my school when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what direction I was moving in. And so he actually stopped talking to me for a whole year because I dropped out of school. And I remember telling him one day, listen, I am not lost. I am on my way. We are different people. We have different journeys, and I'm not asking you to understand it, but I am asking you to respect it. And I know that one day I'm gonna make you so proud, but I need you to simply let me live my own path, and I will figure it out. Ever since then, I gained, a lot more of his respect, and my journey really started accelerating. So for the first half of my life, it was a lot of karmic patterns, karmic relationships. I was self-abandoning, self-sacrificing, overextending. I, of course, wasn't aware that I was doing this until I fully stepped into my spiritual journey. My first awakening happened in 2012. And ever since then, it's been one dark night of the soul after the other, one ego death after the other. And 2019 was one of the years that really, really marked my journey. I would say it was the deepest dark night of the soul for me, after a very karmic relationship rupture. It was an extreme ego death, and it was kind of the moment that forced me into introspection, to go within, to learn how to be with myself, and to explore the depths of my being. During that time, I had my first, I guess you could call it my first spiritual session. And this lady, this channeler, she said, I'm getting this really powerful message and I want you to write it down. I'm getting that you have an innate gift, an innate ability to heal through your hands, which is beautiful because you're a chef. So essentially you're channeling that energy into the food that you're cooking, and you're healing people that way. And at the time, I was kind of like, okay, that's cool. I love that, but didn't really know what to do with that. Anyway, fast forward, after that rupture, I moved to Florida. I started a new chapter of my life. And I thought it was, going to get easier from there. I had no idea what was in store for me. As I mentioned, I was a chef at the time. I went to culinary school in New York City, and I loved it. I loved my profession. I loved my clients. I loved my art. I loved what I did. So I moved to Florida looking for a new chapter of my life, new people. And by the way, this wasn't the first time. Throughout my entire life, I've been shifting timelines very rapidly, moving from one city to the next, changing social circles, jobs. I almost feel motion sick from how many experiences I've had in this lifetime. And at this point, I understand that I traded 3D stability for rapid ascension. So my life has never been conventional. There was a point until, very recently that I felt exhausted. I almost felt motion sick from shifting constantly into so many different timelines. And so I moved to Florida, and the karmic experiences didn't stop there. I went through a lot of dark experiences in Florida as well. And in 2020, I got my first apartment in Miami. Little did I know that the reason I was brought to Miami was because that was the place where I was going to meet my twin flame. Now, twin flame is a term that I feel has become very distorted in the spiritual space. But at the core, the twin flame journey is not so much about romance, although, yes, twin flames have double missions, right? And one of them is, of course, to anchor a new template of love and divine union on planet Earth. But in essence, it is a vehicle. It is a very advanced technology to ascend. And so when I met this person, that connection triggered that ascension acceleration, and my entire life was flipped upside down. I never expected to experience the things that I experienced. Every part of me transformed very quickly. I almost couldn't keep up with what was happening. Not only my old architecture completely collapsed to the ground, my limiting beliefs, my identity, my body started changing very rapidly. I transformed at the DNA and cellular level, and it was just so intense that I didn't even know who to talk to about this. There wasn't anyone around me that was going through something similar. A lot of people, would judge me because they wouldn't understand why I was making the decisions that I was making, why I was doing what I was doing. And it was just, my entire life was completely transforming very rapidly. I seriously couldn't keep up with all the experiences that I was having. The few people that I started sharing these high level experiences with literally asked me, are you okay? Are you going crazy? And I get why they would think that, because they were just experiences that you don't hear about very often. And I started developing my psychic abilities very rapidly. I started communicating with higher beings. I could no longer live a normal life. I was completely isolated from the 3D world from the system. I was completely unplugged. I lost my job. I lost my friends. I lost everything, literally. I was stripped of everything. And in that isolation is where I found my true self, where I understood the purpose of all of this and where my mission was presented to me. Now, when my mission was presented to me, I didn't know exactly what it was, and now I see why. I'm sure that if I had known what this mission required of me, I would have probably said no. To my human self, it was very intense. And so this has been something that has been gradually revealed to me. So everything that I will share with all of you in this channel comes from lived experience. It is not something that I downloaded, information that I studied or came across. The experience came first and the research came after to give it a name, to give it meaning, because I just always had this intuitive feeling of letting my journey unfold organically. I never tried to force it. I've never obsessed about the healing and the retreats and the plant medicine and all of those things. I have done ayahuasca one time in my life and maybe a couple of more modalities, which didn't really give me super high level experiences or even results. And now I see why. The reason why was because my soul always knew that I was here to show humanity what is possible. The way that our biology and our consciousness is the most advanced technology in existence. So all this to say that we don't need a mediator, we don't need a substance, we don't need anything outside of ourselves to tap into our infinite potential, into our the vastness of our being and our consciousness, because it really is infinite. There is no ceiling to how much you can evolve and experience. And so fast forward, for probably a whole year, I was undergoing this deep transformation, completely isolated, unplugged from the system. And in 2021, one of the most intense experiences I've ever had took place. At the time, I didn't know exactly what it was, but now that I look back, I understand exactly what it is. And in the next episode, I will talk about oversoul integration. This is the next level of human evolution. For the very first time in the history of planet Earth, humanity has partial bandwidth for oversoul merging. And at the time, I thought it was a walk-in experience because it was physical. I felt it in my body. But now I fully understand what it was. And I'm sharing all of this not to brag about my superpowers. I'm sharing it to show you yours, because I chose to incarnate as a normal human being with all the struggles and all the obstacles and limitations of the 3D reality, precisely to show what is possible and to show that those things are not limitations. They only exist in our mind. They are paradigms. And I'm here to reconnect every single human heart, every single soul that is ready to reclaim their sovereignty, because that is what New Earth is all about. We are moving into an era where we are no longer meant to be dependent on anything external to us. We are meant to remember our direct connection to Source, to the universe, to everything that exists, and to reclaim our power in order to build a new world, not from a place of survival, but from a place of embodied divinity. Thank you so much for listening. I cannot wait to see you again. And in the next episode, we will go even deeper into oversoul integration.